Hey guys, Sarge, Work Walker Primitive. I'm here to do a review on the Gerber sliding saw. Not sure the exact name of it. Sliding saw, camp saw, whatever. But it's the Gerber saw. Alright. I know I mentioned this saw a few years ago when I first got it. But, you know, I've been spending the last couple of years using this saw. And I figured now I better give it a better review, or at least a thorough review on my findings. This saw, made by Gerber, with Fiskars plastic, made in Finland. It's about just shy of 9 inches or 8 inches when it's closed. Alright, so when it's fully extended, the blade length is 6 inches, and the overall saw being about 13 inches. Alright, give or take. So that's your dimensions of the saw. Now, the reason I like this saw in the beginning is because I kind of like this over the Laplander. I thought I was going to prefer this over the Laplander. Let me correct myself there. I really don't want to talk too much about the Laplander. I do not have one. I've used it many times. I just don't own one. Can't give a review of it. I'm not going to really talk about that saw unless I can actually give a thorough review. But for certain reasons, I liked it over the Laplander. One of them being that this is a this is a slide-out saw. All right, I kind of like that better than most folding saws, because most folding saws, they wear out. The hinges wear out, or they get beat up. They get loose. You know, you go to put them in your pack, and then they fall open. You go to reach in your pack, and you have an exposed blade in your pack which you can't see while you're digging them out. All right, or while you're using them, I've seen some cheaper made saws, less poorer quality saws, as you're using them, that hinge breaks. So initially that's what I liked about this saw to begin with. Alright, it is a decent saw. It's got good steel on it, and, you know, Gerber's a good decent steel, and the plastic from Fiskars is pretty much indestructible. And there was a little blood when I did that. But I like that sliding feature. But one thing I found out is over the last 2 or 3 years of me using this saw, that screw knob has been beginning to start loosening up. Okay, I really have to crank down on that a lot, and you know, that's a safety factor. It doesn't really slide open in the pack, you know, or anything like that. But as you're using it, you know, that knob can loosen up. Then your saw collapses, and that could just, you know, one, you have to stop and retighten it, but two, that can also be a risk of injury. The other thing I stopped not liking about this knife is just that it is really short. And being that it's so short, you can't see it on the camera, and I had to hammer this out a couple times. Multiple times, you know, while cutting, you know, not too thick. It wasn't wood that was thicker than the saw, but on my backswing, because it's so short, you pull back a lot more, and if you're not going in perfectly straight, sometimes you'll bend that tip. I've done that a couple times and actually had to hammer that down and flatten that tip. So the blade is pretty, you know, I won't say weak, but it has a lot of flex to it, and it does tend to bend. As far as its cutting power, the teeth are great. You know, it's got a pull and a push cut on it. You know, so sawing through, this is a dead, I don't know what kind of wood this is. I just pulled this out of the wood. But sawing through this, it's not too hard, okay? You know, you saw through that pretty quick. For thicker stuff, like this piece of poplar, I'm just going to go ahead and cut through this piece of poplar. See right there, you can see what I was talking about. If you pull back too far, and you know, this is probably this thickness of this wood is probably about the threshold for this saw, because as I'm pulling back and coming forward, those front two teeth will catch, and it'll cause you to bend. And every once in a while, you'll catch this front couple teeth, and it'll bend those teeth. Then you got to stop and hammer out your saw to flatten. See, here it does it again. Sawing completely through a piece of wood about this thick is a little difficult. with this saw. You almost have to every time, spin it around. You know, it's shorter than the Laplander, so that plays a whole big part. You know, the Laplander and a longer saw would have handled this piece of wood a lot better. Almost got it. Using up all my video time, just trying to saw this piece of wood. Alright, so, I mean, it took its time getting through that piece of wood. I let that time, you know, speak for itself with this. I'm going to show another video of another saw that I now prefer over this one in a future review, which I think is a lot better. But I just wanted to give you my opinion on this saw. For the smaller stuff, it's not too bad. Alright. But I don't know how, let's see how thick this is. Yeah, this was hardwood. It's hard dried poplar. And it's about 2.5, 2.5, 2.5, and 3. So 2.5 one way and 3 inches the other way. And that's just about the threshold of the 6-inch blade. And you watched how difficult it was, how those front two teeth would stop, and you know, and I think a lot of it's because it bent one time and then it's just never right after that. You know, they are straight, they're not bent, but those front two teeth do catch, and you know, they catch onto the wood. So for the small stuff, it's great. You know, if you want a nice, small, compact, that's one thing I like about it. It is small. It's smaller than the Laplander. It doesn't take up as much space. It's more streamlined. I mean, you can throw this in the back pocket, your front pocket, throw it in your pack. It's not going to take up a lot of space. It is pretty slippery though. You have a little bit of a, you know, jimping, I guess if you want to call it that, you know, on there, but your hands really aren't up there in play for that. But like I said, and I've had this for about 3 years now, and this I don't stop cutting myself with it. This screw knob, I really have to crank down on it to keep it tight, and that's the biggest problem I've been having, is besides the tip bending, is this will loosen up, and as you're sawing, now it's going to make a liar out of me. You know, it'll just collapse on me like that, and that's just not good. That's just not safe. So I really don't use this for anything other than cutting anything, you know, in 1/2 inch to 1 inch thick anymore. So that's my take on the Gerber saw. I've had it for a couple years. I mean, overall it's not a bad saw, but there's better stuff out there. Sorry for working on the trip. Thank you.